in. But just wanted to welcome you all to our January edition of our product updates. I don't know if it's too late to say Happy New Year, but this is the first time I've probably talked to a lot of y'all. So Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us today. We have a shorter webinar today. We've got some really cool things that we're going to cover. Do we have an intro slide? Oh, I can't change that. I just realized
I
you're
got it. The
sharing.
agenda. Here we go.
Yeah, thank you, David. Like, why isn't it moving on my screen? Um, yeah, so today we're going to go over, David's going to take us through the really new and exciting pricing profiles. Just to sort of pre-mention, this is something that we need to enable on your account. So if you're following along with us and you don't see this option, that's why. If it's something that you'd be interested in, feel free to reach out to us at support@pricelabs.co. You can just chat us with that in product little pop-up that we have, and we'll be able to enable that for you. Sometimes with webinars where we have a lot of people reaching out, asking the same thing, it can take a little bit more time. So please be patient, but we can probably get all of y'all enabled today. After we go through pricing profiles, I'll run you through some of the new team management settings that we have available, as well as some of the updates to our neighborhood tab. Of course, if y'all have any questions, comments, feedback, please do let us know. That's what me and David are here for. So yeah, David, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Becca. So I think the invitation said Becca and Richie. So surprise
Forgot
guest
about
here. I'm David. I'm a solutions consultant here at PriceLabs. So I'm on Becca's team in the United States. I mostly help customers on the western side of the United States. So happy to be here with you all. I'm excited for this new pricing profile feature we have tool set. If you are it doesn't necessarily need to be used by everybody. That's kind of why it's a grant feature access at this point, or you have to ask us to enable it, is what I mean by that. But if you're in a highly seasonal market and you're like thinking, man, I love PriceLabs customizations, I wish I could just kind of automate different changes throughout the year. Or maybe you think of certain customizations that make sense during like peak season. You might want to be a little more aggressive on your high demand days, but during your low season, you want to be a little less aggressive, maybe a little more conservative. This kind of helps automate some of those things. So I'm not going to read through these slides. You hopefully my spiel gave you enough time to kind of glance through this, but you do like it says here, you don't necessarily need it. Like our pricing is already doing seasonal stuff for you, but this is if you want your customization capabilities to be able to change with the seasons as well. So just going to kind of walk through these slides and then we'll jump into the software and just kind of show you exactly how to do it. But once it's enabled under the customizations area, you'll see under a new section called profiles, and you'll be able to add in different profiles. Pricing profiles is what we're calling them. Then you can apply it on the custom seasonal profile screen. And then these are just different scenarios. So we'll walk through those in a minute, but let me just pull up the software here. So the way you navigate to it is dynamic pricing and then customizations. And I'm already on that screen. Usually it'll default to showing the accounts page. You got your accounts, groups, listings, as I'm sure you're all very well aware of these options. Yes, the webinar is being recorded. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier. So we'll share that. Thanks for asking. But if you click over on profiles, now this is where you'll see your min stay profiles, and most likely you don't have this activated yet on your account, but pricing profiles will be right here. So very similar to minimum stay profiles. If you've ever created those, you just got to create profile area here. I kind of created one previously, but you just, slow season, I'm going to get more aggressive with my discounting is what this one's set up to do. So but you just create a profile, give it a name up here, maybe a peak season. And these are the options, at least for phase one of the pricing profiles, that you can now change with the season. So occupancy-based adjustments, I know a lot of savvy users really like to use these, and our occupancy-based adjustments, they're with day ranges, right? And our booking windows will change depending on the season we're in, right? So you might want to set up one of these for your peak season booking window timeframes, and you can customize these. Um, I'm sure most of you already know this, but you can download these profiles as a CSV, manipulate it in Excel if that's a little easier for you. Or here, these are completely customizable too. So maybe your booking window is a little longer in your peak season, and you can go in here and make these discounts and adjustments as needed. Just again, these negatives are kind of discounting the price according to these occupancy ranges, and then these positive or regular numbers will be raising the prices. Again, I won't go into too much detail on this specific customization because I'm under the assumption that you're savvy. You've seen this before, but this is where you'd set up your different occupancy based adjustment profile for a different season. Okay. You've also got the ability to say, hey, I want to have my last minute prices be different. And again, we've got the PriceLabs determined discounts if you're on the hyperlocal pulse algorithm, or you might have set your own up. If you are unfamiliar with any of these customizations, you can always click on this learn more option. It'll pull up the help article that explains them. And okay, sorry, just a question, but I think Becca's working on it. Okay, thanks, Becca. Orphan day prices can now be changed by season. Maybe during the slow season, you're willing to discount your orphan day prices more just to try to fill up your calendar. But during peak season, maybe you don't want an orphan day adjustment, or maybe you want one, but it's going to be, maybe aggressive on the weekdays, but a lot less aggressive on the weekends for your gaps between 1 and 2 nights, or maybe just 1 night gaps. I don't, right? Like it's up to how you want to do it, but you have these capabilities now to set these profiles, day of week pricing adjustments. If you have portfolio occupancy based adjustments at the group level and you want to set that for a group, you can do that. Or demand factor sensitivity. This one is think about like demand. So days where you see like prices go up really high because there's a high demand in the market for those days. Everybody, if you have this off, it's the default is our recommended option, but you can either set it to low or high or no demand factor. So low would just mean think about your base price and demand factor sensitivity. If it's on high, we're going really high. We're getting aggressive for those high demand days, and maybe a little lower on the low demand days. Low would be a little just closer to our baseline, a little less aggressive or less sensitive to the demand factor fluctuations in the market. And then recommended is just, again, the default, what you kind of see on the regular. Again, if it's peak season, maybe you want to go high. Like maybe you're in a market where you can go really high on your demand factor sensitivities, right? These are things you can make adjustments to, and then kind of check, save and refresh, check it on your neighborhood data future prices chart and visually see how it would change. But this is, again, these are the options that are available for phase 1 of our pricing profiles. I'm just going to close this instead of saving it. And then where you would apply it. So if I go to like a group, I've got a webinar group as an example. You can set them at the listing level, group level, or account level, just like any of our other customization capabilities. But if I go here to this group, for example, and say I want to go to custom seasonal profile, edit profile, I'm just going to do percentage here. So if you've set up custom seasonal profiles before, this should look familiar. I'll just call this like slow season. And you'll set the dates, maybe middle of September through, I don't know, before Thanksgiving sometime for my markets. If I want to make changes to the pricing, I can. By default, it's just going to look like this, and you're going to wonder, where is my pricing profile? If you click these 3 dots, you'll see this checkbox to add pricing profile. And now here I can add the one that I've already created. Or if I'm like, oh, I'm sitting here and I'm setting up my seasons and I didn't create one over there in the in the other area, I could just say create profile here and just build one right from this profile page. I've seen a few questions come in. Let's see. Could you explain me about occupancy-based adjustments? And then can we adjust midnight stay requirements in pricing profiles? It's not necessarily in pricing profiles, but it's still in this custom seasonal profile area. So this drop down, you can set, like, if this is my slow season, maybe I have a slow season profile. Maybe I'm requiring less days on my minimum stay for my slow season. But yeah, you can set different minimum stay profiles here, very similar to how I just explained pricing profiles. If you don't already have some created, you can create some right from this drop down. But hopefully that helps answer your question. Hey, Michaela. And okay, occupancy-based adjustments. I can I think we have time. Do you want me to come back to that later, maybe, Becca?
Yeah,
Or
maybe after we get through, in case people who are just here for some of the updates want to hop off, we can spend a little bit more time because we don't have a ton to talk about today. But yeah, we can definitely spend a little bit more time on using those occupancy-based adjustments.
okay, sounds good. We'll come back to that, Andres. Were were these others ones you wanted me to answer live?
I'll type those. I'll
Okay, sounds good. And then I'll be wrapping up this part here shortly. So if there are any other questions regarding pricing profiles, please ask those now. But I think it's a pretty exciting option, especially if maybe you've already been doing some of this manually as you're going into different seasons. You might have been making different customization options. Now you can automate a lot of that process. Let me pull up again the slides just to give you another kind of some other scenarios or examples where it might make sense to use different pricing profiles in different times of the year. So again, orphan day pricing adjustments, maybe during high season, you'll have more modest discounting. And then in the low season, you'd increase that discounting. Or the demand factor sensitivity, I know we already talked about that, but high season, you might be able to amplify the reactivity to the market, and low season, you can reduce that sensitivity. Last minute pricing, we talked about that as well, but maybe you want to be more aggressive in your off season and et cetera. So, and then the occupancy based pricing, I spent time on that. We'll come back to kind of what that is by itself later on. But yeah, Becca, do you want to take over the screen and talk about
Sure.
our team management?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Are you gonna stop sharing your screen?
I'm trying. I'm getting
Okay.
there. Okay.
Cool. I should have hopped ahead to the slide that we were on. So yeah, so many of you, sort of larger property managers, operating managers, you might not be the only person in your PriceLabs account, right? So we do give the option for team settings. This is also a by request feature. So if you currently have team members that are going in and just using your login, feel free to reach out to us and we can enable this feature for you. The main change that we've made here is you now have the option to allow your sub users or people on your team to delegate managing team settings. So if there's somebody else, so maybe you are like the general manager or the owner of the company, and you want the PriceLabs account to be in your name, but you don't necessarily want to be the one giving permission to all the different team members, you can assign that to somebody else. You can also assign mapping permissions. So, and if you're not sure what mapping is, not everybody necessarily needs to do this, but if you have like multi-units that aren't necessarily feeding in from your PMS as a multi-unit, where you basically want to tell PriceLabs, hey, this is all one building, all the unit types are exactly the same, I want them to be priced the same. You can map listings in PriceLabs. Before, this was kind of a big pain point for some of our larger users. The main account holder had to do all the mapping. We make it pretty easy to do, but it's still not necessarily something that like the owner or the head of operations would necessarily want to be tasked with. So you can now give mapping permissions to your team. So I'll show you where that is. So just in your account here, if you click on your initials in the upper right-hand corner, that'll bring you to sort of the settings option. You'll want to click on your settings. If you have Teams enabled, you'll see team settings down here. If you don't, feel free again to reach out to us and we can enable that for your account. Now, this page hasn't really changed too much, but your abilities under permissions, we've added a couple here. So if you want to give your team member access to mapping, right now this team member has no access, but I'm going to give them access. The main thing to keep in mind here is if you're giving a team member access to mapping, they really should have access to all listings too. So not just to view, but also to edit. Because say you're trying to map listings and you're not, able to see or edit all the listings in the account, it's not really going to work. So do sort of be aware of your listing level settings when you're giving mapping permissions. The other option is here, your team settings. So if you want people to be able to access team settings and edit them, you'll want to give them access here as well. Any questions on this? Pretty straightforward. If you're new to mapping, just a couple of things. If you're using like a Gmail or a Yahoo or sort of like a generic email address, we won't necessarily be able to give you access to Teams. You need to have a unique domain, so whatever your company name might be, and then we'll be able to give you access. But if there's no questions here, we can move on. This is pretty straightforward. Oh, okay. Hita asked, how do we give full rights of a group to a team member? So very easy. If you go, so right here, you'll kind of see where you can control settings access, either listings, groups, account level. And these are talking about specifically like account customizations doesn't necessarily give you the ability to control everything in the account. It's talking about the account level settings under the customizations page. So that can be a little bit confusing sometimes. So if you want to give access to sort of everything, you'd click edit, and then you would probably see a couple of options here. So if you want to choose listings or groups or accounts that they can view or edit one by one, you can do this. But if somebody should have access to either view or edit all listings, you should choose this option here where it says grant view access to all listings or grant view and edit access to all listings. And this page pretty much looks the same whether you're looking at that says okay. And then I'll go back. Yeah, whether you're looking at your listings, your group customization. So if you want somebody to have full group access, then you would just say grant view access, grant view and edit access, and then update your permissions. And then what's nice is if you have a large team, you can always clone access. So I can clone this, create a new team member, and that person is going to have all of those same permissions automatically. That way you're not having to go through each one of those steps every single time. Cool, good question. Cool. So the final thing that we're going to talk through are some of the updates that we've made to the Neighborhood Data tab. So if you're not familiar with this tab, hopefully you are. This is one of our favorite parts of the product where you're actually able to look at a listing level, understand that hyper-local comp set, and get a little bit of information about that listing's performance. So I won't be able to show you this one in product because my demo account doesn't actually have live real bookings. It's all sort of like dummy data. But you can actually, this is one where you can follow me live. So if you go into your dynamic pricing page, go to your pricing dashboard, you can also access neighborhood data from the multi-calendar if you prefer to look at it there. If you click review prices and go into neighborhood data, that's going to get you to this page, right? So we're showing you a little bit of information here. First, we're going to focus on this future pricing chart where you're seeing the market's prices along with our current recommendations and any, if you haven't synced yet, we'll also show you your current prices in your PMS. Big change that we made here is what you'll see on your account, which my account does not have, are these great little check boxes where you can actually show your upcoming bookings as well as your last year bookings. Big change we made here, and this was actually a request from one of our users pretty recently, so we were able to make this turnaround pretty quickly, which was great. You can now see the booked date for all these reservations. So in this chart here, we see this black line, which is PriceLabs' current recommended price. We also see these green lines. These green lines are basically indicating what the average rate or the ADR was for upcoming bookings, or you'd see blue lines for last year bookings. This way, if you are going into your account, you are looking at all of your upcoming reservations, maybe your past year reservations, it gives you just a little bit more context, right? Because if a booking is made last minute, it's probably going to be a little bit lower than a booking that is made really far in advance. So if you're having conversations with owners and they're like, hey, July 4th week got booked, for much higher last year, or even if you're just doing revenue management and looking at sort of your last year reservations compared to what you have on the books, you can quickly come in here and gain just a little bit more insight into why those prices may have been higher or lower than what you're currently seeing this year. Also can give you an idea of when those dates started to book up if you're just quickly glancing here. Something else that we added that I want to point out that I can show you in my account is the price. People come to us pretty regularly, sometimes where they say, hey, what was my price a couple of weeks ago? I got a booking. What was my price when that person booked? Or how have my prices changed over time? So now, if you click on this more options button here, you'll be able to show your price evolution. Now, by default, we're going to just show you this 30-day line. So it's kind of hard to see because my screen is probably small to y'all, but here, I'll hide the market data. That might help a little bit. So now we're seeing that black line, which is PriceLabs' current recommendation. If I click sync now, the black line is what's going to sync to my PMS or connected account. The red line is where my price was 30 days ago, or 7 days ago. I'm sorry. 7 days ago. You can also add additional lines here. So you can look at your price 1 day ago, 2 days ago, and 30 days ago to see how things have changed. Now, these lines are affected by multiple factors, right? As we're getting more information on the market's performance, that's obviously going to adjust how we're pricing certain dates as we're getting more and more information. Any changes that you make, if you make a base price change, or if you change your last minute discounts or those occupancy discounts, or maybe you employ some of those seasonal pricing profiles that David was talking about before. Those are all going to have effect on sort of these pricing lines, but this can give you a really nice visual to see maybe what direction the market is going in, and just give you a little bit more insight and more transparency to our tools. Any questions on either of these? We have a more general question about neighborhood data. Dan asked, is there or will there be the ability to filter neighborhood data by amenities? Which is a really good question, right? So the comp set that we give you, if I pull this back up, and this is actually, it's funny because this is actually a market dashboard comp set. So if I pull this back, by default, many of you are probably going to see this nearby listings option. If you click this pink square, you're going to see nearby listings. Nearby listings are the listings that we're using in your hyperlocal comp set. So typically up to 350 of the closest units to you of similar size. So if this is a 3-bedroom, we're looking at 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms that are nearby. So if I come down to this map, you can see right here, really sort of hyper local area that we're pulling all this data in from. So this is what our algorithm is running off of. And we show you this. So again, you have some transparency and see kind of all of the data that we are pulling in to make decisions about your pricing. Now, maybe you want to be a little bit more specific, right? I don't just have a 3-bedroom, I have a 3-bedroom and it's got these great reviews and it's pet friendly. And I want to really be able to see where I'm sitting compared to my competition, based on whether it's amenities or number of reviews or any of those things. You can choose market dashboards. Now, this would require you to go into the market dashboard tab, create a dashboard and create a custom comp set. But here, for example, I have 3-bedroom pet friendly with good reviews. So I can apply that and it's going to shift the data here. As you can see, these ones probably are able to price a little bit higher on average. It's probably a little bit smaller of a comp set if I actually look at it, maybe a little bit wider on the island, but a little bit narrower of like the types of listings that we're looking at. And this will reflect in all this data here. Now, it's not necessarily going to change your pricing. We don't allow you to necessarily price off of the comp set that you've customized yet. Maybe it's something that we can do in the future. But if you have questions about creating comp sets or just market dashboards in general, next week, the first Wednesday of every month, we run a really great market dashboards webinar. If you want to sign up for that, you can click the little hat right here, go to training, and you'll see market dashboards right there. We go through creating comp sets and everything else that you can do with that tool. Cool.
Hey, Becca.
Yes, sorry.
In the chat, Morgan asked. She just said, "I noticed that the wording on this new feature that Becca's talking about. I think it's the booking windows
Mm.
last year bookings. It says booked on blank for blank, and the dates are switched. So it says booked on when the reservation checks in, and it says for when the reservation was created. So I don't know if you're seeing weird. Some of
There
it,
was a bug that we fixed yesterday. Again, product updates, new things. Sometimes we've got to fix them. There was a bug that we fixed yesterday, but it may, I did see something funny earlier. So it may not have been fixed, or we may have had to revert it for some reason. So if you see anything funny, just reach out to support. It's likely that we'll have it fixed by today. But yeah, we might have just switched the wording there. I appreciate y'all noticing that though.
and then yeah. Uh, Brad has a follow up to your comp set question or market dashboard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So per your question, if we create a custom comp set in Market Dashboard, it does not affect the pricing. Yes. So this is really more of a tool for you to understand sort of where you're sitting in that comp set, where your price is set. Now you can make decisions, right? So if we're looking at this comp set against my nearby listings, oops, you'll notice that the pricing is a lot more I guess conservative maybe in this little comp set that I have here, or in the nearby listings, but maybe with market dashboards, if I'm looking at those 3-bedroom pet friendlies, um, things are a little bit wider. So maybe I'm going to use this information to say, I can kind of push the limit with this. Maybe I instead want to be highly sensitive for my demand factor, and I'm going to raise my prices because I know that I can based on my comp set. So again, it's not something that's going to automatically change what our sort of base algorithm does, but it's going to help inform you of things where you can make the algorithm your own for your unique properties. And I've got a whole bunch of crazy settings on here, so this isn't like the best representation, but hopefully y'all get the idea. Cool. And then we did have that final question. Um, it's something that we've considered. We're in you know, we have a roadmap, but I'm not sure exactly when or if that'll be on there. It is something that people have asked for a lot though. So the more that people ask for it, obviously, the more we're going to pay attention to it. So if it's something that you really think would improve your, you know, your day to day, feel free to reach out to us, reach out to your account manager, and, you know, communicate that to them because we're all ears for it. Cool. And then, so that's pretty much all we had, y'all. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us, support@pricelabs.co, use that little chat in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We are going to stick around for like 2 more seconds. Andres, hopefully you are still with us, because we can talk a little bit more about using occupancy-based adjustments and maybe even leveraging those seasonally. Cool. David, do you want me to talk about this?
Sure. Yeah, you've got it open. So,
Okay, cool.
right. I can add my
Cool.
2 cents.
Yeah, so I sent in the chat probably a while back in the chat. I sent sort of the basic occupancy-based adjustments articles. It sort of just walks you through the basics of what they are. But if you go to general, just I'm at the listing level, but again, you can do this at the account level, you can do this at the group level, you can do this in a pricing profile. But I'm just here, so we're going to look at this here. So I'm going to turn this on so we can view what's happening. Our default is automatically applying. So essentially, if you have not made any changes to your occupancy-based adjustment, turned it off, changed it around, this is what's applying for every single one of your listings. Essentially, we are looking at your individual listings occupancy over various date ranges or booking windows. So 0 to 15 days, how many days out of, you know, those 15 nights are booked or blocked or vacant, right? Depending on the PMS, most PMSs will tell us if it's a booking or a block. But there are a couple of systems out there where we're counting both bookings and blocks as occupancy. So do keep that in mind. If you're seeing weird numbers, that might be why. Always reach out to us if you have questions. So we're looking at this date range and we're saying, okay, maybe 5, maybe 7 out of like the 14-ish, 15-ish day window are booked. We're going to say that's a little bit less than 50%, but it's more than 40%, right? So that would actually, so equal to or less than 50, that would fall into this number right here. So we would be adjusting prices down by 5% for any dates that are falling into that window for whichever listing you're looking at. Maybe 31 to 60 days, you're actually doing much better. You're already 80% booked. We're going to raise prices for dates during that window. Now, this is a rolling window, so it's always going to be adjusting every single day. It works as almost like guardrails, right? Because your market might be doing one thing, your market might be doing really, really well. But if your listings aren't doing very well, they're sitting unoccupied, we're going to want to lower prices and be a little bit more competitive. Now we have a couple of different sort of preset options here. So we've got default, aggressive, super aggressive discounting. These are kind of the main 3 that I would recommend. And I would not recommend far out premium or last minute discount. Sort of the value of the occupancy-based adjustment is inherently that we're looking at your occupancy, and these 2 options don't give you that. These are sort of workarounds that we rolled out before we had far out premium or last minute discount setting options. And I'm sorry if y'all can hear the construction that's going on outside my house. Hopefully that's not coming through too loud. So essentially, how you might want to use this, like say you're in a very seasonal market, right? Your occupancy goals and how that occupancy develops over time is going to be very different throughout the year. So here in Charleston, where I am, for example, January, February, very slow season. I'm not going to probably hit 60% or 50% occupancy. I might be very lucky to get like 30% here. So my occupancy profile might look very different for January and February compared to my high season, which would be like July, June, July, August. Now, people are going to book much further in advance for those seasons. So if I'm not booked up by, say, April or May for some of my high season dates, that's when I know that I might be in trouble, right? So I can add additional ranges here and say, hey, for my high season, I'm going to start dropping dates if I haven't, if I don't have one booking 90 days out before the certain range, then I'm going to want to start reducing my prices automatically. These are probably things that you're already paying attention to and going into and looking at your calendars and making adjustments manually, but this is sort of here to help automate some of that, do some of the things that you're doing more intuitively, and just make a rule set behind it so that you're not having to go in reactively into your calendars and notice that yourself, but actually it's just automated for you. I saw a couple questions come in. David, did you want me to answer any of those?
Brad has some good questions that lend more to portfolio occupancy based adjustments. So I mean,
Great.
we've got a
Love
little time, so might
it.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have two occupancy-based adjustments, right? We have the one that I just showed you. Now, this can be set at the account group or listing level, but it's always going to apply individually to the listing, right? So even if it's set at the group, and I've got a bunch of other listings in my two-bedroom condos group, all of the occupancy-based adjustments that I just showed you will look at the individual calendars, right? Now, we do have another option, and you can only set this at the group level. I believe our pricing profile is actually, yeah, our pricing profiles do include it too. So this is something that you can also set seasonally. So this is called your portfolio occupancy-based adjustment. Now, I'm going to show you at the group calendar because I think it makes a little bit of sense to look here. Great. So essentially what I'm showing you here is I have 3 units in this group, and on this day, one of the 3 is booked. So that means that this group on Wednesday, January 24th is 33% occupied. Same with the next day, and then 0% occupied the day after that. The second occupancy-based adjustment, it looks almost exactly the same. It just applies a little bit differently. It's essentially looking at this calendar and saying, okay, of the sinking listings in this group, what is the daily occupancy? And then it's going to raise and lower your prices based on that. So if I go into here, so for example, if we were looking at our occupancy or portfolio occupancy based adjustments, we're not averaging the occupancy over these day ranges like we do for the normal occupancy based adjustment. Again, we're looking at the number of booked listings out of the available listings in the group. So if today and tomorrow, so days 0 and 1, that would fall into this column, I'm 33% occupied in this group. That's less than 40%. So those 2 days would get a 15% decrease in pricing. The next day, which would be day, I guess 2, didn't have any occupancy, so it was 0% less than 10, that would receive a 30% reduction. So if you want to take into account your group occupancy, you can also do that. I would just make sure that there's more than, in this case, there are only 3 listings in the group, so I can never have 20% or 50% occupancy. I would maybe do this for larger groups. Again, I'm sorry if y'all can hear the construction outside. I should have worn my headphones today. So some use cases here is like if we talked a little bit about mapping before, if you do have multi-units, this is a really good way to sort of yield based on your internal occupancy. We use this for our campground and glamping customers or like hotel customers as well. Or if you have like a really unique like subset of listings and you want to put a little bit more weight on your listings performance over the market. So if you are just really high-end luxury and your listings generally follow seasonal trends, but you want to make sure like if all the luxury listings are booking up quicker than the not luxury listings in the market, you want to capture that ahead of time, this would be a really good setting to use. And again, if you're not sure of how to set this up, or if you have any questions, you can reach out to support, or again, reach out to your account manager because that's what we're here for.